Just a few lines below the middle of the page, Memtes. The line begins with the word Bozeh. This is the conclusion of his statement that neshames are different than the aura that's in the neshama, or the oil that's in the neshama. The Eiruliki in the neshama is totally different than that which is in the worlds. The worlds, throughout the entire Seder Shtalshalus, is only a ha'ora, which means that it has essentially a functional under basis. The Shomes, they are from Ayin, from Mahus Atzmi, and what leads us to see it is in the fact that the Neshomes will not dissipate, even if they were to be given, to be exposed to an Oir Atzmi. The Neshomes is able to accept it and to relate it, to process it, as we discussed yesterday, and also way before this principle. Okay, the line begins with the word Bozeh. It's not misbattle Bozeh in this ha'oir. Okmoi behamshocha is the oir ha'teira v'hamitzvus. As also is demonstrated in the hamshocha is that comes from oir ha'teira v'hamitzvus. The oil that comes through Torah and from mitzvahs. The hagam she'einei meir achshov begilui mamosh, that although now this oil is not in full glory, in full revelation now, nekomo koim, yet still harei nimshach ha'oir, but the oil is nevertheless nimshach, is drawn gam achshov, even now al nefesh ha'odom, on the soul of man. And as it says in Tanya, Be'inyan, in explaining the posik Vani bar b'loy eida u'mikomo kemo yishimach. The posik, this is a posik in Tehillim. Ani bar, I am a boor, I am not a bar seichel b'loy eida, and I don't know what is going on with me, what is the truth. Mikomo kem, yet still hoyisi imach, I am still with you. How is it that I'm still with you? Because the meaning of being with you is way beyond what is being comprehensible, but it is an essential reality. Omikol shekain, and then surely this is even in mitzvahs, or surely be'eseg ha'teira, in engaging in Teira, harei mikol mokoim, that even if one does not fully understand the full message in this oir, nevertheless, toifes bibchinas mahus chachma ilah. He grasps bibchinas mahus in that which is real on the level of chachma ilah. Chachma ilah is chachma way beyond a worldly context. Just to stop here for a moment, this principle that Torah comes through, Torah represents not a seichel that a ha'ora that fits into a worldly context, but an essential seichel, the essence of the godly truth, even though it's presented in a seichel manner, in an organized manner, but it is totally beyond that structure. As we pointed out many times, just very briefly as a reminder of the Ayin, that we say loy signoiv, and what is the basis for loy signoiv? Is Anoichi Hashem Elokecha. If we were to understand loy signoiv within the normal seichel context, within a worldly context, then loy signoiv has to do with the worldly structure, because Gneva disrupts the orderly process of interhuman relations. Whereas what Torah is telling us, what the way Torah presents it, and we have shown it from various halachas where it manifests itself, that it is on a totally different basis. It's on a basis of chokhmah law, of a supreme reality. Not a functional reality, but an essential reality. And this is all understood, grasped by the Seichel Hod. It is not fully grasped, and eventually it will, but nevertheless, even just to be exposed, even just to recognize this, and recognize this truth, and stand firmly with it, that already shows that this is an essential presence. All right, I intended to stop at this point, to go on now, unless there's something here that is not fully understood, because we have discussed these principles many times before. And all of this is to show where is the inyan that neshamis are really not of a worldly level. They're not ha'ora. A ha'ora means that it could only relate to that which is, maybe has a functional limit. And as essence, it cannot relate to it. It will dissipate. But that's not the case with neshamas. And you can learn Torah, and it says chokhmah law, and remain standing on its feet. Similarly, when the neshama experiences the giluyim of Gan Eden, sham shomes nehani miziv hashino, where the neshamas are actually nehani, they're actually benefiting of the ziv hashchina, of the shine of the shchina, bebchinas hasogas hamahus de elokus. What is this inyan hanehani miziv hashchina? This is an essential hana. This is not a hana of a seichel hana, because they comprehend something which is extremely pure and extremely high. But this is b'chinas hasogas hamahus delakus. That they actually understand elokus per se. Not the functional aspect, not the effective elokus, but the elokus as essential elokus. That is, and the neshamas are nehani, which means that the neshamas are able to process a mahus elokus. They benefit, they experience, they delight. So that we would have some kind of a grasp of what is being said. Elokus and world are and there's anything that is in the most extreme contrast, it's Elokus and world. No matter how high and what purity there is in world, Elokus and world are as extremely different as possibility as is possible. Why? Where is the the clear distinction. World is something that comes into being, has a beginning. Elokus does not come does not come into being, does not have a beginning. That's the principle of Elokus. Like the Rambam says, Motzui Rishon, a first being, that's Elokus. At any level, if it's Elokus, it means it has that quality that it is drawn from Motzui Rishon, from a primary presence. Primary presence and a created presence at whatever level have nothing in common. There's no way that a created presence can understand primary presence, can relate to primary presence. It's completely nullified in that revelation. Because an entity that comes into being, its being has to be able to be justified. How come you're here? What is your function? What do you stand for? If you're in the presence of a primary being, it ceases to exist. It has no message. It doesn't contribute anything in that environment. The Neshamas in Gan Eden, it's in Gan Eden, it's without a group, but in Gan Eden, the Neshamas are able to nehani mizivashina. They actually experience Zivashina, which means they have sod it's hamahus or balakus. They have hasoga and mahus or lakus, and what happens to them? They dissipate? No, nehani. They experience it. They actually have delight in it, which means that they are that in a deep down sense, they have that essential reality. This is what neshamas are. As we always point out, this is exactly what the Rebbe is saying. That's why neshamas, this is what makes the world a real presence. But for that, it would have no basic reality. That's what we said. The whole creation was b'shvil neshamas, b'shvil Yisrael. Or b'prat. Okay, we continue further.
This is different than oras panimim v'atzmim. In other words,
No. The neshamas are rooted in oras panimim v'atzmim. Where does this manifest?
in Torah, in Shemon Esrei,
and it is manifest in fact that neshamas are able to be masik Torah in its true representation. Not just the chitzonius of Torah, not just the ha'or of Torah, the seichel of Torah, but the eliki element of Torah. And mitzvahs and so forth.
and the shamas, when they're not in gufim, they're experiencing something deeper, the same thing but without levushim.
Yeah, the shamas there's masik. They're actually masik. They actually understand it. In the guf, it cannot be masik mahus on the guf. It relates to it, but not in a full-fledged hasoga. Like we discussed yesterday and the other day, also like in the presence of a melech, the fact that one can go back to the first principle. Naaseh v'nishma is a super worldly statement. Naaseh v'nishma expresses a recognition of a truth beyond beyond worldly parameters. In world, if you're going to do something, you have to know first of all what you're going to do and what its significance is. Otherwise, you lose it. What am I doing? And by Har Sinai, you were able to say Naaser v'Nishma. We discussed this many times, pointing out that contrary to what it would appear that Naaser v'Nishma is sub-intelligent, Naaser v'Nishma is the supreme level of intelligence. Okay.
A little bit. Naaser v'Nishma is pointing at the Mahus of Elokus.
Mm-hmm. That's what you say. First is I want to have the whole thing. Then I'll try to understand it and explain it to the goof. But essentially, I want to have this. And then, moreover, when it comes to Giluyim Aliosim, the Giluyim that will come in the future, Shiyiyah Giluy Bechinas Mahus Ve'asmus Ein Sof Mamush. The Giluyim Liosit will be even superior to that which is in Gan Eden. When we say there is a Soga Behus Holocaust, the Osid Lovei will be a Giluy Bechinas Mahus Ve'asmus Ein Sof Mamush. Not a Lakus, not the comprehension of the Lakus on a Hasoga level, but it will be the Giluy of Asmus Ein Sof itself. Again, this is something which sometimes in the past we discussed this, how things are going to be l'osid, l'im de l'osid, where in everything will be manifest the fundamental truth of the Lakus itself, like the Motzu Rishon, not any kind of derivative thereof. And the neshamas will be able to accept all these revelations, all these impressions, bebechinas giluy, bebechinas eipnimi. Bebechinas eipnimi, they will be able to comprehend all of these bebechinas eipnimi on an internalized level, manner, in a full-fledged grasp. Ukmeisha kosu haske v'yodeya oisi. As the Posuk says, that what is really praiseworthy, what is really the highest, the level that's worthy to pursue, is haske v'yodeya oisi, is to be masculine, to comprehend, to conceptualize your day, to know me, to know God, the godliness. And in other words, there is two ways to know godliness. One is that you're bottled to godliness and you sense that it's truth. This is in from Makifi. Because even Naaser v'Nishma is to recognize the truth of godliness, and to have a sense that this is where I want, this is what I want to relate to, but it's not internalized. It's not Nishma. Nishma is still in the future development, and this is in fact what happened. that even though Yidden stood there in Har Sinai and said Nasev Nishma, because it was not internalized, they didn't know how to process any kind of challenge that followed. They had this insight because that's what the neshama is, but it wasn't internal. It wasn't the hasoga mamash, not oipnimi. It was not the way they saw things with their own eyes, so to speak. Deep down, the neshama told them this. They knew that this is what the neshama is telling them. This is not how they experienced it. That's why there wasn't the oipnimi. Oipnimi, the pshat, that this is how the seichel itself, seichel, which is the functioning element of a human being, also speaks of it in that manner. That's what Haske is oipnimi. In our parlance, in our demonstrations, this would be like we say all the time, that we have a chair, a floor, and a beam, a wall, and a foundation, and ultimately the earth, and ultimately we come to a point where we say no, but the earth itself is maintained by godly will. Al blima. True, but do we comprehend it? Can we then say that therefore the fact that the chair stands on the floor is also really what I see is toileras al blima? That's not what I see. I relate to it on the seichelic level. Toileras al blima I cannot relate. I see it, but I cannot really grasp it. There is a story of the Meir who Premislianer. Everybody heard that story, Meir Premislianer. He lived in this thing. There was a steep hill going down to the mikveh, and of course the steep hill was extremely slippery in the winter, and it was not possible to walk down that hill. Impossible. So everyone had to go along the distance all around this hill. The mayor used to walk down the hill in winter and in summer and in the ice and the snow. Regardless, he was not affected by the change of environment. So there was a story, whatever it is, but the bottom line, they asked him, how do you do this? He said, I don't know, because the mail is bound upwards so he doesn't fall down. He never relied on the ground to support him, like we always speak. A human being is not ground bound. That's how the Rebbe made the human being, to stand up erect. But then he reverts back to the ground. The male never reverts back to the ground. He is supported upwards, and that's where it is. This was by him Mahasoga. This is how he viewed everything. This is the important thing. This is going to be their way of thinking. Haske means full comprehension. In general, overall, even now, before the future days, let me try to translate these words. Gila Yosef, a greater revelation, mechoik than the norm, the allotment that is a kotub that is defined by Matachtin in the lower world. Choik means the portion. The portion that is allotted for Olam HaTachton that fits into the lower world. This is the normal, where many things happen, and everything can be fully fit into the parameters of Olam HaTachton, the lower world. When the locomotive was first introduced, it was a steam engine, and people observed this locomotive, and they were discussing themselves. Where's the horse? The horse must be hidden someplace inside that big turbine. How is it moved without a horse? And what was its? How did they refer to it? The horseless carriage. Because there has to be a horse. How was it move without a horse? Ultimately, you can explain how the locomotive works within worldly parameters. And once you fully understand, not everybody can follow all the things. But nevertheless, it is something that is built by human beings, and it is not really a wonder. It's smart, but that's it. It's not super worldly. But in Shamis, surely, Gila Yeshem Echeg HaKotzav Elam HaTachtin, a greater godly revelation than the chayk, than the portion that is allotted, that is fit. Elam HaTachtin, the lower world, Vadai Mei b'Neshomis b'Teirosom v'Avidosom, surely shines by Neshomis in their Teir and their Avodah. And the Neshomis are accepting all of that. Unser Rebbe, this was something which we all observed on a perfectly ongoing, natural, normal level. Like nothing transpired. It was a well-known fact that if somebody had a question, I asked for a bracha from the Rebbe here, and it went through mail. The minute that the envelope was thrown into the mailbox, the mail was received and the response already was there. This was commonplace. Shimon Dworkin was a Rav, Al Sholem was a Rav, Ben Apiniga was a Rav. But he said, don't worry, just put it in and you have a response. You saw it on limitless, like I said, on an ongoing basis, like off-the-cuff answers that contained the total vision, total view of everything that's going on. And this is, so the Neshomis are on a completely higher level than worldly parameters. All right, this is it for this morning. Have a good day. Thank you. All right.
העמים, מכל העמים, אהבת ישראל.